what is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
To renew our sacred vow, never forget. Never forget. We never forget. Each of us, each of those precious lives stolen too soon.
We never forget. He forgot where he was on 9/11.
When evil attacked. And I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell.
Never forget. He said it 3 times in a span of 12.8 seconds, John. And Joe Biden then immediately after that says, I was there the day after. The president forgot where he was. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. You know, sometimes this administration, you know, somebody like in your circle, social circle, work circle, whatever it is, you're in an event, so y'all been having the dinner and stuff, and then somebody's got the broccoli in the teeth, and like...
Or they've got their fly down.
Or stuff hanging out of their nose. And, like, you want to go and you tell them, like, hey, you know, you got some broccoli in your teeth, or, hey, you know, your fly's down. There is nobody in the White House that can go and tell the president, the administration, the vice president, KJP, the White House spokesperson, nobody can go and say, you got broccoli in your teeth. Your fly's down. You lie on a regular basis to the American people. And here's why this matters. So it's not just about the president of the United States lying. He was not there the day after. It took him 9 days when he was in the Senate before he went to ground zero. He was not there the day after, but here's what happens. People on the TV, they see this bumbling old fool on the TV, and everybody's got a soft spot for old people. I know this because I am becoming an old people, and all of a sudden people are really starting to like me, Hannah.
It's about time, honestly.
I know. John, you know.
Is that all it takes?
Yeah, just get old, and all of a sudden people automatically, you get some earned sympathy. People automatically like you. So these people, they turn on the TV, and they see the president of the United States. They don't know that he's lying. But they say, oh, yeah, gosh, the president of the United States, even before he became president, he was at ground zero the day after. He stared evil down. He didn't do it.
How would you like to be his people? We've said this before, and have a guy who won't follow the scripts. I mean, they write the stuff up, and he just you can tell he just sort of, goes off on a tangent, and man.
I don't know what his handlers make salary-wise, but they are earning every penny of that paycheck. So I can't imagine. It's hard enough keeping Branden on track. I can't imagine keeping Biden on track.
So here we are now, 2 days in a row. And by the way, if I can step aside here for a second, this is not by design that we want to come on every morning right here at the start of Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Mr. Houseworth, Mr. Marsh, and Hannah Steph's back later this week. We don't want to come in every day and look at what Joe did, look at what Joe did. But to put this into context, the C word is important here, context. 24 hours ago, what we were talking about, Joe Biden getting told to shut up on a worldwide stage by Karine Jean-Pierre, cutting him off. We've got him flat out lying. And think about this, and we're going to hear some audio from some of his other actions yesterday. He didn't go to the 911 memorial in New York City. I think he's the first president to not do that.
Correct.
Somebody from the White House on the anniversary of September the 11th put out a tweet applauding money going to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, 15 of the 19 designers of those terrorist attacks from Saudi Arabia in the White House on the anniversary of this, puts out a tweet, oh, look at the money between us and Saudi Arabia. Beyond tone deaf, beyond lack of self-awareness, they are not aware of the fact that they lack self-awareness. So this is not by design. It's not like every morning, okay, guys, what do you want to talk about? Let's find something to criticize Joe Biden about.
In fact, it's the opposite.
It really is. Hannah's exactly right. It's like, okay, what can we start off with today that's going to impact people? What's important? We've got some heavy fog between Paris and Centralia. Clay, thank you for that text at 874-9390.
Well, and there's something else that we should point out, too. And that is, if you compare, especially for people who would have been around to remember it, the coverage of this particular president, and you've heard the audio of him talking and stuff, and compare that to when Ronald Reagan took office in 1981. He was 69 years old, and when he ran for re-election 4 years later, so I believe he was 72 or 73. But some of the report, and I thought they did a fair job. I really do. I think the media did a fair job, but they really made a big deal out of him being 69 and let's say 72 or 73. Yeah, to the point where Ronald Reagan had that quip during the 1984 debate in Kansas City, I will not use my opponent's youth and experience against him. But the point is that, when reporters do try to ask about stuff like this, progressives on Twitter don't want to hear it. Right. They really do not want to hear it. But I'd remind them, President Reagan was asked about this as well. Of course, nobody asked President Obama or President Clinton. They were younger. Bush, by the way, the first Bush, I believe 40, would that be 41? He was 64, so he was just 5 years younger than President Reagan. But it was a big deal in the media when Reagan took office. A lot of people thought he was too old.
So just no self-awareness. And it's just incredibly disconcerting. This guy is the leader of what really used to be the greatest country in America, or greatest country on earth. Good work, Rathert.
Wow.
Third grade civics. So this Twitter thing, they get onto Twitter. The national chair of the 9/11 Families United ripped President Biden on the 22nd anniversary of the attacks 2 days after he shook hands with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Again, 15 of the 19 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia. And today, of all days, yesterday, the White House goes onto Twitter and touts the Saudis' commitment to spend $20 billion on Biden's partnership for global infrastructure. The day, September the 11th, Terry Strada, she's not pleased about this.
Well, that photo was a slap in the face to all of the 9/11 families and survivors to see our president smiling at MBS, who is the country that we are suing in the courtrooms in Lower Manhattan.
So that's somebody, she lost her husband in those attacks, still fights very hard for the families, and she's on the Twitter, and there's the White House on the anniversary of 9/11 touting, hey, look at all this money with the very people that did this to us.
And to be fair, we want to be fair, President Bush's administration was also criticized that he, didn't do enough. Of course, he ended up going into Afghanistan and Iraq, but there were some that thought they didn't do enough to punish the Saudis after that. I do remember that being a criticism. But that's a pretty powerful soundbite there. That was pretty powerful.
Yeah. CNN trying to be fair, saying, regarding Joe's statement saying he was at Ground Zero the day after, CNN says it's possible, of course, that Biden genuinely misremembered. And that's the word they used. Misremembered when his visit to Ground Zero occurred. It occurred 9 days after September the 11th. CNN goes on to point out, as president, though, he has repeatedly made false claims about his past. This is CNN. He did it 3 times in a single speech last month, falsely claiming to have witnessed a bridge collapse in Pittsburgh in 2022. We covered that here. He was not there. He just happened to be there 6 hours after the fact. He falsely claimed, all in one speech last month, falsely claimed his grandfather had died just days prior to his own birth at the same hospital. That was not true. And again, repeating a long debunked false story about a supposed conversation with an Amtrak conductor who was deceased at the time the story would have taken place. So it goes beyond Brian Houseworth as a 5-year-old kid with his hand in the cookie jar. Mom comes in the kitchen, turns on the lights. Brian's like, Brian, are you grabbing a cookie out of the cookie jar? And Brian go, Mom, with his hand. This is beyond that.
Brian would have admitted to it, I think.
I probably would have.
Brian wouldn't have done it.
I wouldn't have done it, though.
You would not have done it in the first
You knew better.
I would have tried to do it during the day with permission, So
if and I hope these are conversations, as we try to move the needles forward and actually try to affect some kind of change, short of just coming on here and complaining every morning. Hopefully, these are conversations that you have with these people that support Biden and support Democrats. Like, this guy did some very hurtful stuff. The guy who's president of the United States of America, he really hurt some of his constituents by the actions, posting about the money with Saudi Arabia yesterday, by shaking the hands of bin Salman 2 days before September the 11th, 2023, not going to the event in New York City, first president to not do that. I hope these are conversations that we have with our friends. Kudos to producer Hannah. Big honor last night. Missouri Times 30 Under 30 event and the roast of lawmakers Jeff Knight, Dan Houks. What did you think of the roast? Let's start there, Hannah.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
There is another blistering line. I don't know if you saw the story. I think it was last week, a couple of weeks ago, John, about Bill Eigel's campaign or his super PAC or both. The way they target, apparently they're targeting seniors, and they send out mailers that look very much like it's Trump campaign stuff. And so these people, they're going, and people on fixed incomes, they're going and they're making donations to what they think is Trump, and it's going to Bill Eigel. Big story in the Post-Dispatch about it, where they talk to some of these people from out of state that are donating $10 to the Bill Eigel campaign. And I'm like, I don't know who he is. I thought I was donating to Trump. Cindy O'Loughlin, state senator, reps portions of northeast Missouri, including Randolph County. I think the best line of the night. She got up and she's talking about her age, and she's like, oh, wait, where's my purse? I don't want Bill Eigel taking my money. Oh, God. It was
pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's maybe the only line of the night that we can repeat on air.
Yeah. It's, God, it's such a... But what a neat thing to see, really, because you had Democrats and Republicans and all these folks, you know, they're just hanging out, they're roasting each other, and it's all in good fun. It was really a neat event. Did you enjoy that?
I did. Lincoln Huff was another target. He didn't sign up to be roasted, but he was in the audience and was an easy target.
And then producer Hannah, honored as one of the 30 Under 30 in the Missouri Times. We'll highlight
Good job.
Yeah, how about that, Hannah?
Well, and thank you to Branden for nominating me.
Yeah, I was going to read the nomination here. It's excellent writing, by the way. But we're going to be sharing that. Arps, Christopher Arps is here, 6:35. What we're expecting from the veto session, Congressman Mark Alford, he's here at 7:35. I'm really excited about this, John. There's a guy by the name of Gregory T. Angelo. Back in the spring, he wrote a piece, Wall Street Journal picked up, and he says, basically, I was responsible for the start of companies going woke, getting involved in social issues. Now he spends his life, in effect, making amends for that. He says, I was way wrong on that. He's going to be joining us 7:10 this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Coming up, Daily DC Rundown. Citizens in one state are calling for the impeachment of their governor. How come? That story 5 minutes from now. Good morning.
He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him.
That's what you call revenge. Dick Cheney going after Trump in a new ad you might be seeing in some places. That's revenge for Trump's support of his daughter, for Dick Cheney's daughter. Remember the support for the her opponent in that Senate race out of Wyoming? Thumped her. That's revenge. That's all that is. Welcome into the Daily DC Rundown. I'm Branden Rathert. Stephanie Bell is back later this week. So let's start here. This just coming through from Fox News. Now, Congressman Mark Alford, he's going to be here 7:35 this morning. This is, we're just now learning, John. Fox News Digital confirming House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is going to tell House Republicans today that beginning an impeachment inquiry against Biden is the logical next step. There's a newsletter that reported that House Republican leaders will meet behind closed doors on Thursday. So that's 2 days from now. It's going to be a scheduled update from House Judiciary Committee Chairman Representative Jim Jordan from Ohio, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. And this is going to be some updates on their investigations into Biden and his son. This is the whole thing with the money and political influence to the tune of millions of dollars. McCarthy was saying an impeachment inquiry is the next logical step. Hearing that first this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Congressman Alford, we'll see what we can glean from him coming up 7:35 this morning on the show. Federal lawsuits, cries for impeachment. Another Democrat calls for the impeachment of another Democrat. This Democratic New Mexico governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham. Have you been seeing this story, John? I have never seen anything like this in my life. Yes.
This is a hot one.
Yeah. She is welcoming the fight, protests, lawsuits. She did away with the Second Amendment in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She is banning guns. She says you can't just go and suspend your governor of a little southwestern state. You just can't go, I'm going to suspend this part of the Constitution. Wow. Can you imagine? She decided to, I'm going to suspend the part of the Constitution that deals with slavery. I'm just suspending it. That's how Democrats think. You just simply cannot do that. She says she is welcoming a fight after announcing an emergency order to suspend the Second Amendment. She has suspended the right to carry firearms in most public places. Since she issued the 30-day public health order, a furor is raining down from gun owners, state Republican lawmakers, and people in her own party. A key legislative ally of the governor on gun control initiatives is urging her to rescind the public health order. What a load of crap that a public health order. That's not what that is. That's your disgust for the Constitution showing through. That's what that is. An unconstitutional approach undermines the important collaboration gun issues deserve and the important role of a governor to lead genuine reforms. That's Democrat State Senator Joseph Cervantes writing on Twitter. Now, if you violate this, she's withdrawn the Second Amendment in Albuquerque. I'm just stunned by this. Violators could face civil penalties and a fine of up to $5,000. I will tell you, a lot of law enforcement agencies, even prosecutors, are kind of giving, no, not doing it. Meanwhile, North Korea's Kim Jong-un is in Russia today for a meeting with President Vladimir Putin, where they're expected to offer each other increased support in their escalating standoffs in the West. Kim is expected to seek Russian economic aid and military technology in exchange for munitions to be used in Russia's war in Ukraine. Those two folks teaming up against Western allies, including the United Arps.com, writes for Red State, does a lot of cool things. Since you are listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri, I know you're going to love his website, ChristopherArps.com. Want to get some of the cool things we did last night, but immediately want to start here. Coming across as breaking news from Fox News, McCarthy this week is to greenlight the Biden impeachment. Fox News Digital confirming for Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning that House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is going to tell House Republicans today that beginning an impeachment inquiry against Biden is the next logical step. There's going to be a meeting today with people like Jim Jordan, James Comer, and at that meeting, McCarthy is expected to say, yeah, this is realistically the next logical step. Your reaction, Chris?
Well, I say this is more attached to the government shutdown that's probably going to happen on October 1st. The House Freedom Caucus and other conservative members of Mr. McCarthy's caucus have said that they will not vote on any legislation, continuing resolution, or any type of resolution to keep the government open unless Speaker McCarthy starts a impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. So that is really what that's behind. He is between a rock and a hard place. He's got several members of McCarthy who said they will not vote to allow the budget or allow to keep the government open. So this is his little fig leaf or little piece of nugget to them.
Do you feel like even if it's our team, i.e. Republicans, do you think it's just starting, there's too much infighting? And I get it, sometimes party infighting is good, but we have a golden moment in time, Chris, because of the ineptitude of the Biden administration and all the Democrats, people like Cory Bush, people that are in D.C., all these Democrats. Republicans have a grand opportunity, and I feel like they're not taking it by the neck and choking the crap out of it. That's what they need to be doing, and they're not doing it. Do you agree with that?
I do, and what you see here, you have basically the Senate, House and Republicans, and the White House are on one side, and then you have the House Freedom Caucus, the very conservative members that are holding things up. Look, when you have Josh Hawley, who has established himself as one of the most conservative senators in the United States Senate, saying that he believes that a government shutdown is not a good thing, and that's a route that the party on the House side should not be taken, and other conservative senators have said the same thing, then you should probably take notice and listen.
And I want to highlight, this is some of the audio from McCarthy. This is about 2 months ago, as even back then they've been talking about impeachment for a long time, and I've been one of those. I come on here, I complain because Fox News is like, they get Jordan and Comer on, and yeah, we're getting close, and they keep doing that, and people eventually start to get tired of it, but it looks like we have some movement this morning. McCarthy on the possibility of impeachment. Now, this is from 2 months ago.
10-year IRS agents who have come forward said that the Biden family has been treated differently, that what Weiss has told us is different than what Garland and Weiss has told the public. We would know none of this if Republicans had not taken the majority. We've only followed where the information has taken us.
And the information has taken them to where they're going to say, yes, let's move forward with an impeachment inquiry. Chris Arps.
Yeah, and the whole issue is, Branden, look, if you've been following this stuff remotely closely with the House Oversight Committee, some of the revelations that have come out about Hunter and Joe Biden, there is a whole lot of smoke here. I mean, you can connect the dots pretty easily. But what a lot of House members are afraid of is they don't think there's a direct link yet to Joe Biden. And until that link is found, there should not be an impeachment inquiry yet.
And this matters because this is, in effect, and I would hope very likely, I mean, everything that we've seen, when you have these IRS agents coming out and saying, listen, we were told to shush up by these people because they knew we were getting close to stuff, and everything that we have seen, Dems who tried to suppress information about what was in Hunter Biden's laptop. We don't care about Hunter snorting cocaine off the breast of hookers. We don't care about that. It was the other stuff in there, and this matters because it is the guy who is now president of the United States, allegedly when he was vice president, accepting money from countries that aren't very fond of us. Money was more important to the people that he now serves.
Was Hunter Biden really snorting cocaine off a hooker's breast?
Probably.
Wow.
Welcome to the show.
We have Christopher Arps on as a political insider, and that is the insight that he has given us this morning.
You might want to fact check
pretty
that.
Interesting there.
Yeah, get onto the Google as their trial starts today for monopolistic reasons. Get onto Google. Did Hunter really snort cocaine off the boobs of hookers? Welcome to the show. Wake up,
I miss Stephanie.
Want to know.
Yeah. There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
Brian Hausworth is here. John Marsh is here. I'm Branden Rathert. Chris Arps joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Chris, what took WashU and St. Louis so long to finally come out and say they're going to stop prescribing puberty blockers and hormones to kids? Because I know Andrew Bailey went after them and called them on the carpet about this, back spring, didn't he?
I think when the legislature passed the law saying that you can't prescribe puberty blockers to people under 18, their statement is they're fearful of being sued. That's the reason why they are stopping doing this. Not because it's the right thing that you shouldn't mutilate kids before they really understand what they're doing. So this is a legal thing more than anything than doing the right moral thing, unfortunately, for WashU.
And it was interesting because we know the story that was done several months ago about what was happening at Washington University. Apparently, they were just, you think you're a chick and you're a boy? Come on in. We'll fix you right up. And there was an expose, and it was pretty thorough. New York Times, they came to Missouri a couple of months ago, and they had pen and paper, and they got a bunch of reporters. We're going to debunk that whole story. That's not happening. And the New York Times kind of sat there after their investigation and said, holy crap, everything that whistleblower was saying about this transgender clinic at Washington University, it's true. And there were some startling details in that investigation, Chris.
Yes.
They were
very, very disturbing.
Yeah, it was to the effect of, I'm a boy, but I think I'm a girl. Really? Well, let's perform surgery. In Missouri, you have to be 18 to get a tattoo. Think about the idiocy of that. 18 to get a tattoo. Transgender surgery, you're golden.
And we were also hearing allegations, Branden, that the parents weren't even informed that their children were giving these puberty blocker drugs. That makes it even more egregious.
And now emerging science that says, and this is what I've believed all along, and I'm not a science, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I used to be a dumb kid that thought a bunch of dumb, stupid things like parachute pants were going to be cool forever. More and more science is proving the fact that, hey, when you get these kids that think they're something that they're not, my God, don't go and cut them up and change their gender. They are kids. They don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm 52. I barely know what I'm doing at the age of 52. Yeah. Do not do this. And more science and facts continues to say that, it's a phase. And what is happening is beyond disgusting.
And we got to get away from this belief that a lot of people have adopted that if we don't allow these kids to transition to another sex, then they might commit suicide. That's the reason that a lot of these people approve that, because we're trying to keep these kids from committing suicide. But what we found is that a lot of these people, when they have the transgender reassignment surgery, it doesn't solve their problems. They're still just as unhappy, and suicides still happen.
It's like this, and I've dealt with, and we've all, I think, on the show, most of us on the show, Hannah included, we've all been very open about mental health issues that we've had over the years, and we get a lot of positive response. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to talk about, but if it helps somebody. So I liken it to this. Like when I would be young and depressed, you know what I thought would make me feel better? I'm going to go buy a new car. I'm going to go shopping. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I could change my appearance. I could change my home. I could change my car. But you know what I didn't change? I didn't change my brain. I didn't change my way of thinking. It is no different than these kids that think they're something that they're not. So this will make you feel better. No, the problem centers in the mind. It centers in the mind, and just putting lipstick on it is literally and figuratively is not going to fix it. But this idea, we got to push, this is what we think, and you're going to think that way too. I'll go back to George Orwell. Truth is considered to be hate speech by idiot progressives. My goodness.
You know what, Branden? I read a great book when I was in my early 20s called Psycho-Cybernetics. And it was a book written by a doctor who was a plastic surgeon. but he ended up writing the psychology book. And the reason that he wrote that was there was this young girl that he operated on. She was beautiful, but she got in a car accident and got a scar on her cheek. Well, the doctor, he fixed the scar, put a bandage on it. She came back 6 months later, took the bandage off. The scar was gone. But the young girl looked in the mirror and she said, you know, doctor, I don't see the scar, but I don't feel any better. And that's what embarked him upon writing that book, Psycho-Cybernetics, the connection between the mind and your self-image and how important that is.
I'm excited, Chris. Coming up 7:10, I hope you can listen online at 939theeagle.com or kwos.com. Gregory T. Angelo is the guy. He's president now of something called the New Tolerance Campaign. He admits that he's like, hey, I was kind of responsible for corporations going woke and getting involved in politics, and now he is making amends to that. It's he works for
him.
Yeah, NTC. It's a watchdog advocacy group that holds companies and establishment institutions accountable for their agendas. So he's somebody, he's realized I was wrong, and he's making amends. He's here at 7:10. And by the way, Alford, Congressman Alford here, 7:35, developing news this morning. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says, yeah, we are at least going to push forward with an impeachment inquiry. Chris Arps, ChrisForbes.com, hanging out with us. How about 5 minutes from now, we celebrate Hannah at producer Hannah.
Yay!
Yeah, let's do that. And one of the big highlights last night from the
Opinion, and Hannah, the producer. I am flubbing all over that. Sorry about that. Here we go.
All right, we celebrate producer.
I'm making a mistake?
Hannah, what's that?
No way.
Yeah, voice guy.
The golden voice.
We are celebrating producer Hannah. She was honored yesterday, Missouri Times, 30 under 30. We have pictures on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page. Lieutenant Governor Mike Keogh showed up. Christopher Arps came all the way from St. Louis, man. Yeah. Thank you. How cool was that to see Hannah honored, Chris?
It was very cool. And Hannah, what are you, about 25, 24 now?
23.
23. This means you can win 7 more times. Are you excited about that?
Well, here's the cool thing about Hannah, and this is what they do. They do this every year. Scott Fall, Missouri Times, Soybean Growers Association. They get together and they honor 30 people under the age of 30, and they do a roast of a couple of lawmakers. Last year they roasted State Senator Caleb Rowden. Yesterday it was Reps Dan Houks and Jeff Knight. It's pretty good stuff. You had State Senator Cindy O'Loughlin.
Man, she was good.
Yeah, she had good material. I wonder if she wrote that herself.
So the line of the night had to be delivered by State Senator Cindy O'Loughlin. She reps a portion of Northeast Missouri, including dipping into Randolph County. But her line was, she joked a little bit about her age, and she looked around. She says, "Oh, where's my purse? I don't want Bill Eigel taking my money." And that was in reference to a story in the Post-Dispatch. What was that about, Chris?
A story last week. St. Louis Post-Dispatch has chosen who they don't like, and when they do that, of course, they run hit pieces. So they did a hit piece on Senator Bill Eigel. When you run for statewide office like that, you hire different vendors, fundraisers, the like. And a fundraiser that Senator Bill Eigel has hired for his campaign sends inquiries all around the country to different potential donors. And one of the rich mine of donors they send inquiries to are older people. And so they Post-Dispatch found one of the older people that gave Bill Eigel money from Arizona. And she did not know who he was, didn't know that she had given him money. And the basic underline of the story is that the fundraiser that Senator Eigel uses, claims that the money that they are raising is going to the former President Trump, when it's actually not. It's going to the candidate. And so Post-Disgrace did a big story on that. And Senator McLaughlin used a great line from that story for one of her jokes last night.
It's just a roast, folks.
It's just a roast.
It's just a roast. I loved some of the reactions. And it's, really, I think it's a good event, John, because you got Republicans and Democrats. Carrie Engel, actually, from the Kansas City area, Democrat state rep. She delivered some really good lines, too. But one of the other things we did, we honored producer Hannah, Missouri Times, 30 under 30. Arps coming in from St. Louis for that. Lieutenant Governor Mike Keogh showing up. State Senator Holly Rader was there. As a matter of fact, she's going to be in studio tomorrow. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Hannah, which is a bigger thrill for her? She's got 2 big life events coming up. One coming up. You got the event last night, and you're getting married next month. Which is a bigger deal, this 30 under 30 or marrying the absolute love of your life? Tough question.
Right. I think I'm going to have to say getting married is going to be a little bigger of a life event, but I'm still very excited to have been honored on the 30 under 30 list this year.
Producer Hannah getting married.
Thank you.
Getting married Halloween night at a cemetery in Centralia, so that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, my dress is black.
Producer Hannah's day starts.
I'm confused.
Starts early at 5 a.m. in the Wake Up Mid-Missouri studios, where she produces and is the main player on the highly rated show that airs on 93.9 The Eagle, 104.5 News Radio, 950 KWOS. 23-year-old native of Centralia has been wielding her influence and sharing her unique opinions on the show since she left. Some phenomenal writing, by the way, on the show since she left high school and managed to get a degree in ag science.
Barely.
And I almost put, she barely got a degree in ag sciences from Mizzou while she was part of the show. Professionalism, she's got it, regularly deals with some of the biggest names in state and national politics.
And Chris Arps.
And Chris Arps.
You guys need an ag science segment.
or not.
I deal with enough manure every day, Chris.
You could read the markets for us.
Hannah.
Patience, she's got that too. She keeps Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell in line. And I love that. Here's my favorite thing while we're heaping praise on Hannah. Here's my favorite part of this, Hannah. She keeps Branden Rathert and Stephanie Bell in line on the 3-hour show.
I noticed this, but I didn't want to say anything.
That airs weekdays from 5:30 to 9. That's 3.5 hours.
community for sexual identity and gender, we should be pushing the actual school studies, math, social studies, science.
I really would say sex education. I feel like some things, are brought to the children's attention they wouldn't even think about.
That was from a focus group on Face the Nation on a Sunday morning several months back, and they just impaneled parents, and of all political ideology, and pretty much every parent was in agreement, even the progressives who said they felt like, hey, we can talk about this now because they're afraid to talk about it. Some of these progressives saying, I disagree with this whole thing about what you're teaching my kids when it comes to sex in schools, but in this situation, they felt comfortable enough to be open and honest. Whether we're talking wokeness in schools and business corporations, it is affecting American. It is getting really silly. Back in I think John and I, we actually had talked about this on the show. There was a piece in the Wall Street Journal back in April, I think it was, written by Gregory T. Angelo. And kind of the gist of this piece was he said, I'm not solely responsible. He said, I was probably one of those people in my role as a lobbyist, kind of responsible for ushering in wokeness in business and corporations. And now he's doing about the exact opposite of that. Let's welcome into the show Gregory T. Angelo. Let's start with the piece that you wrote this past spring in the Wall Street Journal. What was the gist of that?
Yeah. Well, the organization I had, the New Tolerance Campaign, was founded to allow everyday Americans to push back on woke corporations and institutions when they betray their stated values. The thing is, I looked back after I was named the organization's first president, and I realized that 10 years ago, when I served as the president of the Log Cabin Republicans, I was actually partially responsible, as you said, for ushering this era of woke. One of the things that I did while I was there was to have a strategy to lean on major corporations to have them weigh in on things like support for same-sex marriage or legislation that would prevent individuals from getting terminated from their jobs because of their sexual orientation. At the time, these were things that had a lot of popularity among the public. The winds were blowing in a certain direction, and I felt that it was just good political sense to lean on corporations to have them weigh in on these contentious social issues, to basically have them put the thumb on the scale. And you know what, Branden? It worked. We now have marriage equality in all 50 states. The legislation that I was pushing to pass in the United States Senate, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, actually did pass in the Senate in 2013. But guess what? Even without more than 300 Fortune 500 companies weighing in support of same-sex marriage with the Supreme Court, we would have had that Supreme Court judgment in 2015 that made marriage equality the law of the land in all 50 states. Even without a national law preventing individuals from getting fired from their job because they're gay, we have market forces that have basically created an environment where that's the case even without legislation. But boy, what has happened in the time since with corporations? Because they set a precedent weighing in on things like same-sex marriage, things that I was partially responsible for encouraging them to do, we've now opened this Pandora's box where corporations feel not only inclined to weigh in on everything from abortion to Black Lives Matter and climate change, but they feel that the public has their support and it is their duty to do so. And that's absolutely not the case. So what I'm doing now at New Tolerance Campaign is empowering everyday Americans to push back against those forces and hopefully bring our country back to a place of neutral where corporations only weigh in on things that impact their bottom line and institutions remain true to their stated values.
I think an important human characteristic is ownership. Ownership for even when you make mistakes. You say, hey, I messed up. I was wrong. Is that kind of hard for you to kind of come to terms like, man, I kind of had something to do with this crazy wokeness?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. The longer story is that I actually had a colleague that I sat down with a couple of months after I started at NTC. This is around like June or July of 2021, just to kind of tell him about the work that I was doing. And I said, hey, among other things, we're allowing everyday Americans to send messages directly to CEOs of woke corporations, telling them to get out of contentious social issues. We're pushing back on those forces in corporate America right now. And he paused for a second. He looked at me and he said, wait a minute. That's cool, but didn't you help to create this whole problem?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no. I mean, I maybe I did a little bit, but I can't say I'm like fully responsible. But as time went on and I thought about it more and told other people about this idea that my colleague had, they said, he's right. Yeah, you actually did. You did play a role in this, and you should just own up to it. And you know what? I will say that it's not only liberating, it's also kind of rare in politics to have someone apologize or to admit some culpability in something. But I think that there's a certain gravitas that I'm now able to talk about openly that I bring to these discussions. Because, you know what, Branden, I have been in the room. I've been behind the closed doors. I know how this game is played. I know what got us into this mess. And I think I'm uniquely positioned to get us out of it. And I think sharing that message is something that is not only empowering for me, but also speaks to the work that I'm doing now at New Tolerance Campaign and encourages other people to join me.
NewTolerance.org. You can get involved. You can. There's some really cool things you can do. But what I'm thinking, somebody driving to work this morning, it's 7:15 Tuesday morning, and they're okay, wokeness, and we can push back. But why do I care? How does this affect me? Somebody driving to work right now, how does this wokeness affect them, Gregory?
Well, I think that said no better in the opener that you had with quotes from that focus group that was largely bemoaning wokeness and an LGBTQ agenda being pushed in schools. Well, that's no accident, and it's certainly not something that was happening 10 years ago. I think that is a natural outgrowth of corporate America going woke. And we see just how bad this infection becomes, where it's not that, if you don't like the product that one woke corporation is pushing, you can take your business elsewhere. You don't really have that choice in the schools, right? And the schools now feel emboldened because they look around at corporate America weighing in on issues they have no business weighing in on, and they're like, so we can push this agenda here in the schools also. If it's in your school district, you don't have a choice about that stuff. So, and you know what? Even if you don't have a child in school, this stuff could be coming to you before you know it. We're actually working on a campaign right now at NTC. There was a woman in Portland, Oregon, who's battling cancer, and she has been the target of online bullying by transgender activists because she thinks that biological women are biological women and biological men are biological men. Well, guess what? For expressing her displeasure at seeing a transgender flag prominently displayed at hospital check-in for her primary provider, she received a letter banning her from treatment at the entire network of OSHU hospitals in Oregon. I mean, this is wild. This is medical tyranny that's happening now. So, and by the way, she expressed those sentiments personally, and I think the sentiments that she had are shared by a lot of individuals, myself included. So if you don't think that this is going to impact you, it's going to sooner rather than later. It's not just in corporate America right now. We're seeing it in schools. We're seeing it even in hospitals. And if we don't raise our voices together to push back and let people in C-suites, the deans of colleges and universities, and the heads of major hospitals know that we will not stand for this, we're not going to be in a great place politically in this.
Another great example of how progressives and idiots think that truth is hate speech. Wow. Our guest, Gregory T. Angelo, NewTolerance.org, joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. He's a guy, he says, I had a part to do with corporations going woke, and now he's, in effect, dedicated his life to undoing that.
Gregory, I know we've watched this story and Walmart being one of those firms that, they were directing upper management and junior management and all to go through these, classes, workshops, whatever you want to call them, to talk about race and religion and gender identity and all. I guess the question is, with as tough a job market is to hang on to people, is this a dumb move on their behalf?
Well, it's certainly not something I think that is going to go without pushback. And we have a campaign, we have several campaigns against Walmart right now at NewTolerance.org, where people can send messages directly to the company's CEO and their senior management expressing their displeasure at the company pushing critical race theory trainings on their employees. And I say pushing because, Branden, they're supposedly voluntary. Right? Mm-hmm. It's a voluntary training for diversity, and it's a voluntary training for tolerance. But, if you don't volunteer, you're automatically labeled a racist, right? As you said, if some people are just holding on to their job, clawing onto it by the tips of the nails of their fingertips, they might just, go along with it anyway, keep their head down just so they can keep their job. It's a challenging time out there right now, but I think what we saw, especially over the summer between Target and what's happened with Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light, that corporations, I think, are finally coming around to realize that if they weigh in on these contentious social issues and they do become a target of boycotts and grassroots pushback, it's something that could have a definite negative impact on their bottom line.
So, Gregory, we've got like 1 minute. There's two. I want to ask what folks can do on your website. But first, I want to ask. And that's my thought. Okay, if you're a corporation, I'm just not going to go buy my Nike tennis shoes. Why take it further than just not buying products? Why get involved with newtolerance.org?
Well, because just one person not buying products or posting a negative review on social media is not going to change the course of this country. As I said, these institutions are massive. They are well-funded. Some of them have, annual budgets in the billions of dollars. It's going to take a grassroots movement of everyday Americans making their voices heard together in those C-suites to let these CEOs know that they need to change course. And that's what we're doing at NTC. We've taken the call your senator, email your congressman model, and our secret sauce is that we've repurposed that, and we allow everyday Americans to, instead of your congressperson, you can send messages directly to the CEO of Target, letting him know that you do not approve of them pushing LGBTQ extreme merchandise in the store, or the dean of Emerson College admonishing him for dechartering the school's Turning Point USA chapter. To date, we have recruited over 65,000 people in all 50 states who have sent messages, tens of thousands of messages to these decision makers, and we are getting results. We've gotten responses from Walmart. We have gotten student organizations that were dechartered, rechartered. The Emory Free Speech Forum is one that immediately comes to mind. All of a sudden, these corporations that thought there would be no blowback are finding themselves in the midst of negative PR campaigns, and it is that grassroots movement that we are generating that's making that change.
All right, 2 minutes. Gregory T. Angelo, you're good. Hey, man, I do got to get moving. Thank you so much. Go to the website, newtolerance.org. I appreciate your honesty, your candor, and I appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Anytime, Brandon. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll see you next time. Coming up, we're going to do What's Hot with Hannah at 7:25-ish.
You ever been really excited to
5-ish, which means it's
7:25.
Time for What's Hot with one of the 30 under 30 honorees with the Missouri Times last night, producer Hannah.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Brandon.
You are welcome.
Obviously, we're in the swing of football season. College football got kicked off, no pun intended. Thank you. Last weekend, North Carolina State had a big project that they were unveiling for their, home opener, and it didn't go super well. Have you seen this story?
Mm-mm.
They were unveiling their brand spanking new gigantic scoreboard. It's the 11th largest scoreboard in college football. They spent millions of dollars on it. It's 166 feet wide. It has 6.6 million pixels. And 15 seconds into the second quarter of the very first game that they debuted the scoreboard at, it experienced some technical difficulties.
Oh,
no. There was some severe weather in the area. The game ended up getting delayed due to lightning in the area. And folks thought that the scoreboard actually got hit by lightning. The school has since fact-checked that, debunked that myth. But there was still some serious issues. It's posted on the Wake Up Facebook page if you want to go check it out. Most of those 6.6 million pixels were black for quite a while, which is extra unfortunate because they were trying to display on this scoreboard that there was going to be a weather delay in the game. They had an hour and a half delay, and they were trying to put on the board, updates, and most of it was black. Their brand spanking new $15 million scoreboard bit the dust 15 seconds into the second quarter of its first game.
I'm trying to do some math on irony squared, because that sounds like irony squared. They're trying to, hey, here's watch the weather warning on this big thing.
That's the worst feeling, though, when you're excited to show off something really cool, or you've been planning a big event or whatever it may be, and then it kind of craps out and bites the dust in front of all these people. It's embarrassing.
You feel like that's what happened in Monday Night Football last night, Marsh, with Aaron Rodgers?
I was going to say,
God.
exactly what.
He comes out.
4 snaps and we're out of here.
Oh, man.
Well, 5 snaps if you include his Achilles tendon.
There you go.
Woo!
Very good.
Coming out of the locker room carrying the flag, 9/11. The game is in New York, and he in 5 snaps in, as producer Hannah says. That shiny golden new toy in New York is already, and we don't know yet this morning if that's going to be, if it's something serious. But you saw on the zoomed in replay?
I did. It was kind of gruesome. It was a zoomed in clip of his calf when his Achilles tendon allegedly might have snapped, and you can see the jolt through the entire calf of. Ugh.
It's like it's almost like, let's say you had a burlap sack or something. And that burlap sack has a big old armadillo in it, and it's trying to get out of that burlap sack, and it bulges. That's what the back of that's what his calf looked like, kind of like it bulged.
Or like if you cut a rubber band.
Yeah.
And, the tension that gets released real quick.
Developing this morning, Kevin McCarthy, House Speaker,
15 members of the House and Senators Ted Cruz and Marsha Blackburn. So all of this, it's on top of the latest Real Clear Politics average of polling data that puts President Biden at a 42.3% approval rating, 52.3% disapprove of his job performance.
So that's not new. We're aware of the poor poll numbers. And again, I want to go back to poor poll numbers. It's not. Here's another opportunity to dig at Joe Biden. Joe Biden digs at Joe Biden all the time. He doesn't need our help doing it. As a matter of fact, coming up at 8:10, Joe Biden really big on the we never forget, September 11th, never forget. Well, he forgot. You got to hear coming up at 8:10. You can hear for yourself what he said. But what is new in this report from Fox News is McCarthy apparently, is Congress going to be back in session? House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is apparently saying we are going to move forward with an impeachment inquiry into the President of the United States of America. How's this news hitting you upside the head this morning, Mr. Marsh?
I'm from Missouri. Show me.
Show me. And I agree. As a matter of fact, I've been after Fox and I've been after Jordan and Comer for a while. Like, okay, you guys keep going on the Fox and you say that you have all this stuff. And I understand you are also tempering everything with saying, the web is wide, deep, and sticky. And it's going to take a while to get to it. We know that. But then they go on Fox all the time and they keep saying, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. So I have a tendency to agree with John Marsh's statement. You got to show me. We are from the show me state. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Mr. Halsworth is joining us.
Good to see you.
Good
morning to you.
Producer Hannah is here. Big kudos for Hannah. Producer Hannah last night, honored by the Missouri Times. Missouri. By the way, Congressman Mark Alford going to be checking in here shortly. We've reached out to him and said, hey, what do you know about this McCarthy and the impeachment inquiry into the President of the United States this morning? This is brand new. We want to be the first to go to Capitol Hill. Joining us right now, Congressman Mark Alford. Welcome into the show. I know there's a lot of big things we want to talk about, but breaking news in effect this morning. Looks like McCarthy, your House Speaker, and somebody who's campaigned on your behalf, moving forward with an impeachment inquiry hearing. Can you react to this for us, please?
Brandon, I welcome this news. The American people deserve answers. The impeachment inquiry is the next step to get those answers.
Well, that was interesting.
What the heck?
I did.
Short and sweet.
Brandon,
Okay.
did you push the button?
I did nothing. As a matter of fact, if you were watching our YouTube channel, Wake Up Mid-Missouri, you will see that I did nothing. We'll call him back and see what's going on there. Well, we got the important stuff, right, Brian?
I think I heard maybe a sentence or two. He basically, I heard him say he welcomes the news about Speaker McCarthy, and then it sounded like the phone went dead.
Okay, Congressman, you're back.
I'm back. Sorry.
That's okay. Start over.
I don't know what happened there. You're experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. So here's the deal. I'm very pleased that Speaker McCarthy is going to go ahead with an impeachment inquiry. I think it's a matter of national security to get the answers we need to directly connect the President of the United States, who is then Vice President, to these illicit and illegal dealings. We've got to have an impeachment inquiry, and I'm glad we're moving forward in that direction.
All right, Congressman Mark Alford joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I've introduced everybody, Marsh and Hannah and Brian Halsworth. I'm Branden Rathert, all hanging out with you on the show this morning.
Yeah, Brandon, thank you. Congressman, again, obviously breaking news, but in terms of, you mentioned you welcome it, what specifically are you, and probably several things, but a couple of things that you can highlight you're specifically concerned about to where you would welcome this from the Speaker?
I'm concerned about the delay and the stall tactics that inside some of the parts of the federal government, the Department of Justice, IRS, are hampering the Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee. We've got to have unredacted records. We've got to be able to show, to see firsthand, Congress does, the links between Joe Biden and this $20 million plus that has come into 20 different shell corporations. And he's using, at the time, pseudonyms on his emails, dozens of pseudonyms, trying to cover up his tracks.
And this matters because you have a guy who is now president of the United States of America, who it looks very likely that he was using his name as the vice president of the United States. He was making money off of his name with countries, by the way, who don't like us very well. Our guest on the show this morning, Congressman Mark Alford, joining us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Congressman, talk to us on your take about the newly proposed constitutional amendment that, if passed on Missouri's ballot, would stop cities like St. Louis and other cities from cracking down on people's Second Amendment rights.
Look, we have a supremacy clause in the United States Constitution for a reason. Our Second Amendment stands supreme. There should be no restrictions. We don't need more gun controls laws in America. We need more self-control. And so anytime a state or other entity tries to supersede the people's right to the Second Amendment, to have that secure amendment that can help protect our homes and our livelihoods, then it's egregious and should not be happening.
Congressman Mark Alford is here, so y'all got to be back in session. Listen, it seems to me, and I know this is your first session since you've been elected to office, but it seems every year, right about this time, Congress heads back to D.C. Oh, government shutdown and all that. How likely do you feel this is going to be, a government shutdown this year?
It's going to be tricky. Look, I get back today at 3:30. My flight leaves out of here at 12:05 from Kansas City. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got to pass these 12 appropriation bills and fund the government. I'm willing to do a one-time short continuing resolution to Halloween. First step is going to be defense. We've got to fund our military and give our soldiers, airmen and women and Marines a 5.2% raise. And we've got to make sure that our military is adequately funded so that we can be a great deterrent to communist Chinese. But after that is Homeland Security. That's going to be a sticking issue. We've got to make sure that our border is secure. There's some who would tie border security, H.R. 2, which we already passed, to this appropriation bill. I think it's very important that we get the wall finished and that we secure our border. Without a secure border, we don't have a secure nation.
Congressman, I want to ask one quick question, more of a district issue, but very important, and that is the Swift Foods announcement when you were here earlier this year in Columbia. And, of course, I was up at the plant and near the plant in Moberly not too long ago. But they're one of the biggest projects. I mean, you were up there as well, not just biggest projects, but biggest plants I've ever seen, ever in this state. They're still hiring people. Just your thoughts on that and what's happening on Route B, which is literally a food corridor. If people haven't driven up there, it's Nabisco, it's, Quaker Oats, you name it up there. Your thoughts on that, Congressman?
Look, it is an exciting time in history for the Columbia area and that corridor along I-70. I think the expansion the governor has pushed through on expanding I-70 is only going to help matters. But this food corridor that's being set up is unbelievable. Swift Foods, this Principe, Italian guy who came here to America to want to start his business, and he did with the help of Swift. And it is going to be one of the largest specialty producers of salamis and pepperonis. I think this is just the start of what's going to be happening in that region.
All right, Congressman Mark Alford hanging out with us on the show this morning. So you get back into D.C. this afternoon. First order of business when you all reconvene?
Well, we have votes tonight at 6:30. Those will probably be special orders. I know the Rules Committee, because we run things through regular order now, everything goes through the committee process, all these appropriation bills, and they go through the Rules Committee, and they decide how much debate and any amendments they're going to allow on the floor. And so that's a good process. They're meeting right now. So I anticipate that by the end of this week, we will have a vote on at least one appropriations bill, hopefully two, but probably just one. And we can move forward. With a short-term CR, I think we'll be able to get this done, and I'm hoping to work with the leadership to do that.
When I was in Florida, I was in a district where my state legislator was Mr. Matt Gaetz. Of course, you serve with him in the House.
Yes.
There's a lot of talk. He's apparently trying to rally people up to get Kevin McCarthy ousted. Is that just Matt Gaetz talking, or is there something to that?
Look, I'm not going to speak ill of my Republican brother. I do think Matt Gaetz is very impassioned about what he believes. The reports that I've read and his a little volley in the X world, as we now call it, between he and Eric Swalwell, who, slept with a Chinese spy, to try to formulate some sort of agreement to get Democrats on board to help oust Speaker McCarthy. My theory is if you're trying to get Democrats involved to do whatever you want done, that may be a good signal to pause and think about it for a minute.
Anything else you want to add before we let you go, Mr. Alford?
Look, I'm just so honored to have this seat. Yesterday was a very somber anniversary, 9/11. I think we all remember where we were on that day. I was anchoring the news for Fox here in Kansas City. It is a solemn day we should never forget. I think our president did a great disservice by not being back in Washington or New York or Shanksville, as past presidents have done for 22 years. And then to make a deal with Iran, or at least announce it, one of the largest terrorist states in the world, I think is despicable. To give them $6 billion to fund other terrorism projects, I think that says something about the character of Joe Biden.
You are correct. I agree absolutely. We're going to hear more on that. Joe Biden saying yesterday several times, never forget, never forget. Well, he forgot. He upset parents and family members of folks that died on 9/11. And then to get onto the X, the Twitter, and brag about this money with Saudi Arabia, who had 15, was the home country to 15 of the 19 attackers. These people in the White House administration, incredibly hurtful. Congressman Mark Alford, this morning, Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
All right. Next time we can do anything we can do to help you be of service to your constituents, you let us know. Coming up 5 minutes from now, what you're going to be doing. And that would be all except for this.
Chicky the dog ate more
156, S&P 500 up 30.
And I'll keep an eye on the futures for you. We'll do that in the morning bell at 8:25. Business news, little twist that we give you here on the show. One of the things that we are covering in the morning bell at 8:25, if the United Auto Workers Union strikes, what are the effects going to be on you? We'll do that for you at 8:25.
And that would be all, except for this.
Chicky the dog, guilty as charged. The story of a Boston man whose dog ate his passport just a week before his planned wedding in Italy. Donatato Frateroli and his fiancée Magda Masri had to go to Boston City Hall to fill out their marriage forms ahead of their planned August 31st wedding in Italy. And when they got home, Chicky the dog, a.k.a. Chicken Cutlet, had chewed up Frateroli's passport with just a week remaining until their flight. He told the Boston Herald, our extremely cute 1.5-year-old golden retriever decided she didn't want us to go away to get married, so she hopped up on the counter and ate my passport.
Oh.
He said the earliest he could get one, he was told, was a week later, but he'd have to go to Atlanta one day before his Boston flight left for Italy, but they hooked him up and said it's almost like my dog ate the homework, but with bigger ramifications. And he finally told reporters passports will stay locked in the carry-on and will be kept away from Chicky's kibbles and bits. Now you know the rest of the tail wagging the dog on that one.
Man, that is terrible timing.
I've always wondered what would happen, like if I lost my So I lost my passport it's been 4 years. Came home from Italy 4 years ago. I put it in safekeeping.
Really
it was
safekeeping.
Really safekeeping. I found it about 3 months ago after doing a massive deep cleaning on the house. But I've wondered as often as I fly to Idaho, like, what would happen if I lost my driver's license? Like, are there any exceptions at an airport? Like, if you show up at the airport and like, hey, it's me. I don't have my driver's license, but why don't y'all let me on the airplane anyway? And I know it's the day after September the 11th, but can
they point you down the end of the concourse and see that sign there that says Hertz on it? Why don't you go talk to them?
Would they accept if you had a photo of it?
Well, I would guess not. But then I always think, because the other thing I carry, I have my driver's license, and then I have my student ID from Southeast Missouri State.
That's so bizarre.
With the mullet.
With the mullet from 1988, 1989. And I thought, well, I've got that. Will that work? Can I board this international flight to Italy with this 30-year-old college ID of me in a mullet? Will that work?
I'm going to guess probably not.
Yeah, probably not. By the way, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, there it is. You can also watch the show on Facebook. And have you checked out these new apps, by the way? What's your favorite thing about the new apps?
I have checked out the new apps, actually. I really like that when we're live on Facebook or YouTube, you can open up the app and the video feed is right there on the home screen, and you just tap it and it'll take you to the stream.
All right. And John, what were the names of the folks in that story again? The dude whose dog ate the passport?
Donato Frateroli and fiancée Magda Masri.
Can you imagine if you were a news director in like Milan, Italy, and those are the names you're reading every day in the news?
Well, it's probably more normal if you're, also Italian.
But. Somebody in Italy going, I'm supposed to read this name, John Marsh?
Oh, man, we just got a text from listener James at 874-9390. He said, a friend of mine lost his passport while in Russia. He was stranded in Moscow for a month, unable to come back to the U.S.
Whoa.
Of all the countries to be stranded in, I would not want to be stuck in Russia.
Look, I shared cell space with Brittany Griner from the WNBA.
Oh, no.
James, that'd be cool if your bud would be willing to call into the show, because what do you do in that situation? I mean, you could lose your wallet, you lose your ID, lose your passport.
Well, you'd think the embassy folks could move it along a little faster than that, but I guess not.
That's what you would think. Coming up a little bit after 8 o'clock, Joe, yesterday in a common phrase that we hear following September the 11th, never forget, never forget. on this and everything, Hannah? We could run it through the Ministry of Truth.
Bill O'Reilly might get mad at us again if we do that.
Bill O'Reilly, he gets mad about this.
Look at what you just stepped in.
You are about to enter the no zone.
This is the O'Reilly Factor with Branden Rathert.
Yes, I hit Brandon with a stick.
Whenever we do that, Bill gets mad because we mentioned when he was on the TV, he had something called the O'Reilly Factor or the O'Reilly Factor. We do something called the O'Reilly Factor.
Bill O'Reilly gets mad when he gets up in the morning.
Bill O'Reilly gets mad when producer Hannah calls him 2 minutes before he's supposed to make an appearance on our show. Call me back in 2 minutes.
He was lovely to you guys.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what you call a hypocrite. Somebody
or a diva, one of the two.
Or both, maybe. A hypocrite or a diva, somebody who's nice to these people because of their standing. And,
we can't talk about Brian Houseworth like that.
Sorry. Using words like diva and hypocrite when you're not in here, buddy.
No, well, we try not to. I try. I try to be
kidding. We were talking about Bill O'Reilly.
I understand.
Actually,
it's all good
on the show.
Was Bill unfriendly to people or?
No, he was great to me and everybody else on the show. He was friendly to all of us.
Yeah, when he was off air talking to me on the phone, I did not have the same experience.
Wow.
What was your experience like? It was kind of like the John Marsh, Dick Morris experience.
Yeah, he was perturbed that I was going to put him on hold, and he said, "Don't call me until you're ready." Click.
So here's what happened behind the scenes. And do me a favor. We appreciate you listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning. Don't tell anybody this, all right? This is just between Wake Up Mid-Mo and you since you're a family member. So, like, whenever you hear these guests on the show, whether it's Congressman Mark Alford or whether it's people like, formerly famed pollster Dick Morris until John Marsh inadvertently shredded his prediction abilities here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri a year ago. So, whenever we call these guys, you call them a few minutes before you go on. So you say, hey, we just want to be clear. These are some of the things we're going to talk about. Also, we have this.
And especially folks who are in the media realm typically understand that, if we're going to have you on at 10 after, we're going to call you about 5 or 6 after.
Yeah, people know this, but Bill O'Reilly, he didn't want to be on hold for 2 minutes. So by the time they had this conversation and Hannah hung up on him, guess what? 2 minutes was up and she called him right back. Welcome into the show. There's Brian Houseworth.
It's good to see you.
There's Mr. John Marsh.
Here, sir.
There's one of Missouri Times 30 under 30 honorees. Producer Hannah is here. Big event last night. Being honored. What was that like to be honored? Room full of lobbyists, lawmakers. Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe showed up for this. State Senator Holly Rader, who's running for lieutenant governor, she was there. Chris Arps, who's here every Tuesday, all kinds of folks were there. What was that like for you?
It was pretty cool. I got to meet lots of new people, and several folks came up and said, "Oh my gosh, I listen to the show every morning. Like, I love you guys." So it's cool.
Producer, and here's the nomination for Hannah. Producer Hannah works tirelessly around the clock to make Missouri a better place to live. Producer Hannah's day starts early at 5 a.m. in the Wake Up Mid-Missouri studios where she produces and is a main player on the highly rated show that airs on these radio stations. The 23-year-old native of Centralia has been wielding her influence and sharing her unique opinions on the show since she left high school and managed to get a degree in ag sciences from Mizzou while she was part of the show. Professionalism, she's got it. She regularly deals with some of the biggest names in Missouri and national politics and people like Bill O'Reilly while readying them for their appearances on the show. Patience, she's got that too. She keeps Branden Rathert and Stephanie Bell in line on. And Marsh, this is my favorite part of the whole nominating letter. She keeps Branden Rathert and Stephanie Bell and John Marsh in line on the 3-hour show that airs weekday mornings from 5:30 to 9.
The math ain't mathin'.
Who wrote this?
Well, here's the thing.
Who wrote this?
So I noticed that the first time I read the little article, and I had a moral dilemma because who criticizes this really nice nomination that they were given? Being like, hey, you got this wrong in this really nice nomination that you wrote for me.
But I'll take the award anyway.
So I'm glad to hear that you also caught that.
And what's amazing, I read that article several times. And by the way, Hannah, congratulations. It's some big names on that list. I mean, a who's who of young Stephanie Whitaker's on there. I mean, some really big names. Dallas Ernst.
Trey Fauché, president.
Trey Fauché,
Mizzou College Republicans, he was there.
Greg Razor, a Democrat senator from Kansas City, has I can't remember the young lady's name, but she worked for Kip Kendrick, but a rising star in the Democratic Party. She works for Senator Razor. She's on there too. But I read that and read that article several times, and I did not catch. I just caught 5:30 to 9. I didn't catch about the 3 hour, but I thought it was a great nomination, and congratulations to Hannah. And again, those are the future. I mean, those are the people that are going to be our leaders here very shortly.
That's right. And the other thing too, and Hannah's a very humble person. But she was saying yesterday, she's like, but in the world of politics, I call, Kehoe and Parson and put them on the air. But you do so much more than that. I think the idea that you share as a 23-year-old, you share your opinions. I have a good friend. A daughter grew up in a small mid-Missouri rural town and, tried and true small hometown values. She went to Mizzou kind of like Hannah, and she has told me, she says, yeah, my daughter, she came home from school after 4 years. She's changed. It's like we don't recognize her. We respect her, but we don't recognize her. So I think, Hannah, your influence is that being the age that you are and talking about your conservative values and standing by those mostly, I think that's your influence.
Well, I appreciate it.
And that story about Hannah, and great. I consider basically a co-host. I mean, I do. I know that's not the right, but I mean, she is.
I'm the co-host that doesn't have to do any show prep. I just get to show up.
But the point, Brandon, that you
What's
read
up
there
with Hannah's prep?
Yeah.
But you about the mother from the small town and the daughter went to Mizzou for 4 years. That strikes me as very interesting because I can remember in the 1980s that campus was full of, down the street from us, was full of young Reaganites. And I'd venture to say, I don't know this for sure, Hannah can, I'd venture to say a lot of them are probably progressives now, but
understatement, Alford.
That's a pretty bold statement for a news director, isn't it?
Well, there were at that time a lot. I mean, Alex P. Keaton was, remember him?
Yes.
Nope.
Richard. Yeah.
Alex P. Keaton, probably the most famed young conservative of all time. Unfortunately, Alex P. Keaton was a television character in the TV show.
Yeah, but he went back to the
called
future.
Family Ties. Family Ties. And he had a picture of Richard Nixon on his wall. I remember that. But there were a lot of Reaganites at that time. But congratulations. Good job.
So what you do, Hannah, is really important. So who wrote this thing? 3-hour show. Airs weekdays, 5:30 to 9.
That is one Mr. Branden Rathert.
So
Chat GPT wrote it.
There you go.
Shh, John. No, I wrote this all on my own. I seriously did. But I'm not taking ownership. And I'm big on ownership. If I make a mistake, I made the mistake. What can I do to make it right? But I'm going to push this one off on Scott Fawn. Because I wanted to say, like did you proofread what I wrote, Scott? You should know better. Did you proofread this? Do you have editors in the process? Did you fact check what I wrote? You might want to take ownership. Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe showed up last night.
Should I tell the story of what happened with the lieutenant governor?
Yes, you should.
So, John, the rain kind of put a damper on, the Soybean Association's plan to kind of open up their big, center room. So we were all kind of crowded into a smaller area than they would have liked. So it was pretty crowded. And I was trying to weave my way to the bar to go get a drink. And one of the people I brushed by was Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe. And, I looked at him. I said, hey, good to see you. And I shook his hand. He said, good to see you. And it was written all over his face. He had no idea who I was.
And you get that because in these situations, people, the first thing they do is look, are they wearing a name tag? Their eyes shift
And
down.
I had forgotten my name tag. So I just left it at that, went on, got my drink at the bar. Kehoe comes up to our table where we're sitting a little later in the evening. He's talking to Brandon. And he looks around and he goes, where's Hannah? And I'm sitting right in front of him. I was like, I'm right here. And he goes, oh, I didn't recognize you. I don't think we've met in person before. I was like, we've met like 4 times.
You're invited to my wedding on Halloween Day at the cemetery in
Those
Centralia.
darn politicians.
So that was kind of funny. And then he proceeds to tell me that, I'm his favorite and all this. I'm like, you're just trying to suck up now. That was kind of funny. I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, it was a really good time. So kudos to Hannah. It was great seeing everybody.
I think she ended inside track, though. Her buddy, Millie Fawn.
Millie Fawn is the daughter of Scott Fawn. Scott Fawn does the Missouri Times, and Millie Fawn loves the What's Hot with Hannah that we do every morning, 7:25-ish here on the show. I got you wondering, what would happen if a governor of a state said, you know what, I'm going to rescind the 13th Amendment. 13th Amendment, of course, abolition of slavery.
Is that what you sit around and just wonder about?
That's what this head thinks.
Interesting.
When it is thinking.
Okay.
They tried that in the 60s down south.
Yeah. What would happen if a governor said, you know what, I don't like this amendment. I don't like the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, the women's right to vote. I'm just going to rescind that amendment in the Constitution. Well, what happens when you, in effect, rescind, which is what the New Mexico governor has done. She has rescinded, if you can even do that, she has rescinded the Second Amendment right in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
The governor's public health order has created nothing short of an uproar, banning open and concealed carry in public spaces throughout Bernalillo County for 30 days.
Can you imagine? That's what this governor did. She's a Democrat, by the way. You don't need me to tell you that. She just rescinded a constitutional amendment. Rescind the 19th Amendment. Rescind the 13th Amendment. Rescind any amendment you want. It is incredibly disgusting and unconstitutional, but that's how these people think. Well, just do that. Coming up, we're going to be doing the Morning Bell Business News, a little twist that we give you here on the show. If the United Auto Workers do little twist. By the way, Stephanie is back later this week. Futures down. They're in the red this morning. United Auto Workers could begin striking this week. Couple of things you might want to know. So they have until midnight Thursday before the contract expires. UAW is demanding. We saw this city council in one of our mid-Missouri towns a couple of weeks ago, city of Columbia, these union people. We demand right now, we demand this. Why don't you ask instead of demand? That's my take. But I can be a cranky old dude sometimes, Hannah. And Hannah will call me on it, or at least ask me. She will ask. She'll ask, have you considered that maybe you're being cranky about this? But anyhow, it happened.
It's my nice way of telling you that you're being cranky about
it. By the way, I called Go Como Connect yesterday, not on behalf of the radio station. So went to the Mizzou football, the Go Como Connect does, and it is free. You don't have to pay, but it's not free. Somebody's paying the tax dollars to pay for those drivers to come and do the shuttle from places in downtown to the football game anyhow. And the website at Go Como Connect said buses leave at the end of the third quarter. And the end of the third quarter, we're out there, all these buses the other night at Hospital and Tiger Drive across from the stadium. And they're like, nope, it's after the game. And I'm showing them the website that says, no. See, it says here, after the third quarter. Like, nope, after the game. I'm like, okay. So I did call them yesterday, and I told them, I said, this is I even called from my cell phone. I didn't even call from a radio station phone because I didn't want to have the appearance of being, that cranky. Because I care less as it relates to the radio show, except for all the other people that were upset Saturday night that the buses weren't leaving when the website said. And the guy says, by the way, I know who you are.
Kind of backfired on you.
Well, and I told him, I said, I'm mostly, this is for my personal edification. I said, I had people from out of town that were counting on this thing. And when it wasn't there, it was frustrating. And you had other folks. I wasn't the only one that was affected by this. And
there was a big crowd.
Yeah, there was a big crowd. And frankly, I feel like I was doing them a favor because the guy said, I was not aware of that. So I feel like actually I was doing the city a favor by saying, hey, just so you know, your website says this, but that's not the reality.
You felt like you were doing the city a favor? Come on, you.
It was a day of service yesterday, Hannah.
No, you were doing yourself a favor.
Didn't you get yesterday was a day of service.
Okay.
On Patriots Day, and I
that
felt like
is the biggest load of crud I have heard in a long time.
I was being of service to the city of Columbia by letting them know there's some lack of communication on the website to reality, and being of service by letting other folks know.
You sound like KJP right now, and how she can make anything sound flowery. Come on.
The good folks who attend the 2-0 Mizzou football game, to let those folks know, hey, next time you are not going to be disappointed by a shuttle that's supposed to leave at the end of the third quarter. So anyhow, it was a personal phone call. It was not on behalf of work, but I was busted. And I wasn't cranky either. I was very polite and said, here's what's going on. Where was I? Oh, yeah, back to the cranky union workers. UAW is demanding an immediate 20% raise, followed by another 4 raises at 5% each. How nice is that? 20% raise, a fifth. You make $50,000 a year, we're going to give you $10,000. $10,000 raise, just like that. Wouldn't that be nice if everybody got that? So here's how it could impact you. The Anderson Economic Group tells us they did some calculation, and they calculated a potential economic loss of more than $5 billion if a strike against all 3 companies lasted 10 days. They also say a strike of that length could push the Michigan economy into a recession, and some car models may become
to alcohol, which increases carbon dioxide. Thus, you get a buildup of air, pressure, and then watermelon soup. And it can just explode in front of you.
All right, exploding watermelons, the next topic here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Finally, something I can use my ag degree for.
Well, Hannah, who was honored last night, Missouri Times 30 Under 30, we talk about her ag degree, and she's in broadcasting. It makes perfect sense to me. But yeah, ag sciences. So can you explain why watermelon? Sometimes I guess it gets hot in a watermelon, especially at grocery stores when they're all packed up in the same, like sometimes they're outside and they're all in the bin. They can just like explode.
Well, like if you've ever accidentally left food in a package, like in your car, and it gets that air buildup in it, it's the same concept. Eventually it's just going to go kaboom.
That's what happened to Aaron Rodgers' calf last night on Monday Night Football. That's what that looked like.
Wow. So one of my favorite games to play is you get a watermelon in a group of people, and you got a big old bag of rubber bands.
There you go.
Yeah, and you take turns. Everybody puts one rubber band across the middle of the watermelon, and eventually it builds up enough pressure that the watermelon explodes.
Really?
And so you don't want to be the guy who put the last rubber band on, basically.
Did anybody as kids ever put a little hole into a watermelon and then cram fireworks down it and little firecrackers?
No, we usually put vodka in them.
That's right. You carve out a little hole. You take your corkscrew, carve out that nice hole. Heck, if you wanted to get real fancy, you get a drill, carve some of that stuff out, and dump a couple of bottles of vodka in it. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert. John Marsh, producer Hannah is here. Brian Houseworth also hanging out with us. Oh, and here's a tip on John, in case you wanted to know how to avoid exploding watermelons.
We want to look for almost the opposite of what we think. We don't want bright and shiny. We want dull and dark. We don't want long and thin. We want round and plump. We want it almost when you hit it, there should be like a lower thud.
So that's how you can avoid exploding watermelons.
That was dating advice or something.
874.
That is just wrong.
874-9390. We're in Jefferson City. That's where we find Kevin, who has comments on exploding watermelons. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, good morning, guys. I'm not lying. Yesterday, I woke up and there was juice of some sort all over my counter.
Oh.
And I couldn't figure out what the heck it was, and I knew the wife was going to be upset. So I started cleaning it up, and I look over there on the counter. We had a small, round watermelon, and somehow a small hole blew out of the top, and it was just foaming juice out of it. Unbelievable.
Wow.
So I had to get rid of it.
That's a good man right
there. I've never seen that happen before. Never seen it before in my life.
How about that?
As I was carrying it outside to the trash can, it was still oozing out the top like foam. It was crazy.
Did it
Never
smell
seen anything
bad?
like that. It did.
Yeah.
It smelled really funky.
What did it smell like?
Rotten watermelon?
Rotten watermelon. That was what I was going to say.
Kevin, we appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri, man. You have a great day, bud.
Thank you, man. Bye.
All right, you bet. I never heard of exploding water. And now we've got scientists here telling us, here's why watermelons explode. We got Kevin in Jefferson City. Have you ever had any exploding fruit before? 874-9390.
Wow.
Man.
I have not. I want to mention something real quick here that we just got word from the governor's office. He's called a press conference. The governor just moments ago at noon in Jefferson City. He'll announce who is going to fill the open seat on the Missouri Supreme Court. So that'll be interesting. Judge Draper has retired, George Draper. So that'll be something I know John will be paying close attention. But that's a pretty big deal, I think, for the entire state. He really doesn't get to pick it. There's a panel of attorneys that send him 3 names. He picks one of those. But the bottom line, he chooses who he feels will be the best pick.
Back to exploding watermelons. No, I mean, I think Parson, didn't he do something different? Like usually when Parson interviews, or the governor, I shouldn't say just Parson, but the governor, and I could be wrong, it's happened twice today already, but sometimes I thought they would interview potential nominees. They would interview them individually, and this time he kind of did group settings.
You know, I'm not 100% sure about. I know that it's a great question, and Stephanie might know that, but that has been a point of controversy to a certain extent. Some conservatives in the legislature don't feel like this it's basically the Bar Association sends them the list of names. They feel like a governor should be able to choose whoever he wants, but that's the plan right now that's in place. The governor picks one of those three.
All right, so that's going to be later today. The other thing that's breaking this morning, Kevin McCarthy saying they are going to move forward with an impeachment inquiry into the President of the United States of America for allegedly using his name to make money from enemy countries, in effect, with the help of his son, Hunter Biden. So they're going to be announcing that later.
Did you see what else happened with McCarthy yesterday?
Nuh-uh.
There were some protesters that stormed his office.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And basically camped out over an HIV bill, I think. And they had to be forcibly removed by law enforcement.
Wow.
And then Matt Gaetz, we asked Congressman Mark Alford was here on the show about an hour ago, and you can always go back and check out our conversations with these folks on our website, Wake Up Mid-Missouri on demand at 939theeagle.com or kwos.com. You go on those websites. Typically by 11 o'clock most days, we have specific interviews. We have the show posted in its entirety, and it's commercial free. It's the condensed, it's like the Reader's Digest condensed version. It's all good stuff, but you go there and you can check that stuff out. But apparently Congressman Matt Gaetz, he's trying to round up people to kick out the Speaker of the House, and there's a lot of things I like about Matt Gaetz, and there's a lot of things I don't. When the Republican Party has a chance to clobber the Democrat Party right now, and you start doing stuff like that, I think that's crap, really. It's not helpful. In a time when you have the President of the United States, the majority of Americans, 60% Americans, 61%, do not like the job that Joe is doing. The country headed in the wrong direction. And those polling numbers, when we say country is headed in the wrong direction, I really believe that means the collective sense, the collective feeling of the country is not good. When you have 60% and more, 60% of us Americans not feeling good about things, even people that voted for the guy, when you're not feeling good about things, that's bad.
But if you're a Democrat right now, and there are some listening to the show this morning, if you're a Democrat,
there's a couple, not many, but a
name
couple.
them.
If you're a Democrat listening to us right now, they're going to be thrilled with your news about Gaetz trying to do, because that's going to be and the media, they're going to cover it. And by the way, it is newsworthy that he doesn't have the votes to take down McCarthy, but it's a very, very important time. But it's going to be a distraction to McCarthy because he's going to have to fight that challenge off.
And they need stuff like that. The national news outlets, they need that bickering. They need some of that stuff for content. Otherwise, they come on and they talk about exploding watermelons and things like that.
It would be news, though, if a sitting speaker, there's an effort to oust him even if it fails, but I know what you're saying.
Marsh, how excited are you by the news coming out of the Chiefs camp this morning?
Well, guardedly optimistic, I guess. It'd probably be a good one. They didn't tell us what the details are, but Chris Jones is back. Sounds like a 1-year extension is what they're saying.
Yeah.
So basically, we're going to go through this again in 12 months.
It's kind of like government shut. We go through it again in a year. It's kind of like government shutdowns every time Congress goes back into session every fall. Oh, yeah, there might be a government shutdown, and we're going to scare Americans and push them to the edge of the cliff and scare everybody.
Have we gotten any updates on Kelsey?
I think
he looks probable.
Probable.
Coach Reed said he looks probable for the weekend.
Maybe we'll have someone who can catch the dang ball.
There we go.
Any word on Aaron Rodgers?
Hopefully not in a Jacksonville jersey as well.
Any word on Aaron Rodgers, big new guy in New York City?
Sounds like he's out for the season.
Oh, man. They opened up that game last night, New York, and he comes out, the American flag, and 4 snaps in. As a matter of fact, Jack, via text, did the math on us. About $9.4 million per snap last night.
Does that include the snap of his Achilles tendon?
Coming up a few minutes from now, we are going to be doing some leftovers. Big event coming up this weekend. It's been an annual event, and this thing has it's exploded like a watermelon in the hot summer sun. It's Lizzy's Walk of Faith. I'm going to talk with the folks on that, kind of the genesis. It's a really, really cool thing. Aerosmith's supposed to do a couple of shows in Missouri, Kansas City, and then I think St. Louis next month. Warning, this might hurt a little bit. They've had to cancel some dates, and I don't know yet if the dates in St. Louis, Kansas City are going to be affected. But Aerosmith has had to postpone some farewell tour shows. The reason, Steven Tyler says, I'm heartbroken to say I have received strict doctor's orders not to sing for the next 30 days. I sustained vocal cord damage during Saturday's show that then led to bleeding. His vocal cords are so damaged, apparently bleeding.
Man.
Ouch. Coming up 5 minutes from now, leftovers here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Good morning. Well, I wanted it to get in there. That's why. All right. You're in for a real treat. Nolan's next. See ya.
Bye.